Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Rich Walker. Hi, Rich.
Hi there. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you on the podcast. You are yourself a seasoned podcaster, so you know the game. You've been interviewing others and being a guest on other podcasts. So we're going to have a fun conversation about systems, about business, about expansion, about different things. You know, it's never boring talking to you, that's for sure.
That's great. I'm very system and process oriented myself, so this will be good.
That's right. Well, but you know, as we start a podcast, we have to do the formal introduction and the bio. So I'm going to give you a bio so people will know how amazing you are. So you started over 10 companies since the age of 12.
Yep.
So you beat me to it in terms of I started when I was 14, so you were younger, but that's well done. Okay. And you are the host of the Customer Wins podcast. You're author of 2 books. We're going to talk about that. And you are a father of 3 boys.
Right.
And you empower people to do the best work and their best work. And you started Quik, which is your current company. But before that, you were a financial advisor and a business consultant. And you started Quik in 2002. And you know, those podcasts that we're recording are evergreen, but still it is over 20 years for sure.
Yeah.
So that's very good. And you started to help people spend less time processing paperwork and more time on what they do best, which is incredible. You know, that's what I started my company, because I realized that what entrepreneurs really want, like why they went to business for themselves, why they are entrepreneurs, because they're looking for freedom. Mm-hmm. But they're not really always able to get that freedom. So anything that facilitates them to get them towards that freedom is going to be a good service for them. Did you find the same?
Well, that was the reason. I mean, look, I started with Arthur Andersen out of college. I'd worked at a lot of financial service firms throughout college. And I kept looking and saying, who's going to let me do my best work? I want to really run faster than they were allowing me to run. And so for me, being an entrepreneur is that ticket to freedom. But Adi, my joke is, and somebody else's joke, which I love, entrepreneurs are the only people willing to work 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week. And I did that. I mean, I really have been focused on how do I build something that can go without me? But I mean, I put 2 lifetimes into it to get there.
That's right. That's correct. So, you know, we're going to talk about that, about your journey and what you learned, and share any experience with our audience, also in terms of systems and what works, what doesn't. But before we do that, we have to give a big shout out to Jeremy Wise and John Corcoran, who introduced, that's how we met, because we were both on a panel talking and giving raving success stories of how podcasts actually, how much we love podcasting. So yes. Definitely a big shout out to Jeremy and John from Rise 25 for introducing us and for producing the podcast. So hi, John. Hi, Jeremy. Thank you so much for all you do.
Absolutely. They're amazing. I honestly wouldn't have my podcast without them.
Same here. Same here. When did you start your podcast, by the way?
So I'm coming up on, well, it depends on when this airs, 2-year anniversary. So my first episode aired, I think, February 8th of 23. So I've just produced this week my 100th episode. And I was really excited because I chose to have my mom on the show. She's the co-founder of Quik. And she's been retired from the business for over a decade. So most people don't know who she is. And I wanted to give her that exposure and everybody get to meet her. And besides which, she's such a powerful influence in my life, just how she raised me, how she empowered me to be the best person I can be, and how she continues to support me as both a friend, a mother, a business partner, a grandmother to my kids. It's just amazing.
That's beautiful. You know, I work with several mother and son teams, and that's great. And I do the same with my son. He's part of my company as well. So I think it's incredible to be able to have that kind of relationship with your son and work together. So I'm curious, how did Quik start?
So it started because I became a financial advisor in late 2000. And when I worked to get all my licenses and then worked really hard to earn the trust and respect of my first client, the reward of opening their account, which would mean I could make some money, was I had to fill out their paperwork because the clients don't know the paperwork. So I would fill it out on their behalf, make sure it's correct. They would sign it and we'd submit it. But Adi, I found myself filling out paperwork for a living, making $4 an hour effectively, when as a tech consultant, I charged $200 an hour. And I thought, wow, this is dumb. So I just built tech to enable my work. And in fact, I built lots of different tech, not just forms. I built charting systems with Yahoo information on stocks. I built integrations between software. I just wanted to automate my business. And everybody kept looking at my forms and calling me. Anytime I turned in forms, they'd call me like, how'd you do this? I'm like, oh, it's just this little thing I built. They're like, give it to me. I hate filling out forms. And for 6 months, I said, no, I'm a financial advisor. I'm not trying to be a software guy. And I had that background in tech, so I knew enough, but I'd never built commercial software. So I kept saying, no, no, no. And after 6 months, I finally said, wow, we have something here. Everybody wants this. So I went to my mom, who's also a technologist, and said, what do you think? Should we build this together? And originally the idea was I was going to be sales and marketing and she was going to build the tech. We actually reversed roles immediately because she was so busy with her clients. So I built the first product and we installed it on February 11, 2002. And the first person who got it successfully, I mean, it didn't work the first time I ever tried to install it, but the first person to get it successfully and start using it, they had a full-time staff person, 40 hours a week, handwriting forms. And she called up 2 weeks later. She's like, you're changing my life. I don't have to fill out forms anymore. I spend 4 hours or less on it. And so we felt like we really had a strong impact to give to other people. And now we had a mission. I mean, yeah, I hated filling out forms and I knew that we could help others. But when I really saw others get it, and as time went on, we'd do a conference or trade show and I'd meet people who are using our software. I felt like a rock star or a best-selling author because people would come up and be like so grateful and happy. Like, you've changed everything for us. We can do our best work. We can meet with our clients more. I don't have to just go through this grind of filling out paperwork. So, we struggled through it and built our company.
Fantastic. So, and it's still going strong.
Yeah. I mean, look, we are bootstrapped. We did everything wrong. We suffered greatly. We mortgaged our home. My mom mortgaged her home. I mortgaged my credit cards. We worked really hard for a very, very long time to build this up to where it is. And I could not be more excited about our company at this stage. We are on the cusp of some tremendous growth in front of us with deals that we've signed and deals that are pending that we believe are going to sign. We last year introduced a new product. We've always said we had 2 products that we're really good at. So adding a third product is a big deal, and it's AI driven. And we've already closed our first major enterprise deal on that software. So I feel like it's something about entrepreneurs that I often joke about. Your first idea is not your best idea. It's the one that gets you started, right? And frankly, our first idea was a turnkey product that you'd install. And 2 years later, we changed it to an API, meaning now it's enterprise level and you can install it and configure it and white label it. And that was the turning point for our business, was to give big enterprises this capability. Well, I joke now, and I mean it though, the third product is the best idea I've ever had. It only took me 21 years to figure it out.
Right. Right. So if we have entrepreneurs right now that are listening to us and they want to know what is it that you feel like you did right and what could have been done better? Like, what are some of the mistakes and what some of the things that you feel like, yeah, this is the way to go. This is something I recommend you do.
So I'm going to first use an analogy my mom likes to use, which is we are like the bumblebee. And I mean the big one, right? Technically the wings are too small for that insect to fly. And what does a bumblebee do? It kind of bounces around and just makes its way through life. That was us. We were following revenue opportunities. We were doing consulting deals. We were building products on the fly for customers because they asked for it. And we were just kind of bumbling around, trying everything to figure out what would work for us. And ironically, one of the things that worked immediately for us, I would say like in year 2 or 3, was sending out personalized letters to potential customers about a problem they had that we could solve. And we won our first 2 big customers that way. I should have kept doing that. Instead, we focused on serving the customer and not sending more of those letters out. So we went through this typical thing entrepreneurs go through, which is feast and famine. We won these big deals. We suddenly had all this work to do. We stopped doing the marketing and sales activities. 6 months go by. We deliver product. We're making money. We forgot what we had done. So we stopped doing those activities. And then we were the bumblebee again, trying the next thing.
Right there, right there, we forgot what we have done. That's where documented processes come into place. I have to put that flag in there because that is exactly the reason why I tell companies, you got to document, because you never know then what was successful because you forgot about it. If you had a process, a marketing process in place, it wouldn't have happened. So I love that. Continue.
Yeah. No, and you're so right, actually. I mean, we ended up over time adding documentation to remind us of things. And it was sometimes little sticky notes about how do we talk about price on a phone call, or when do we talk about price on a phone call? Because we know some situations are better than others for bringing up that topic or responding to that topic. So anyway, so some of the things we did right is I am very, very persistent and patient. And I've been willing to do the hard work for a longer period of time than most to get this thing going. But look, I'll share some statistics that I think are really remarkable about our company, but also very, very hard earned. Over 99% of my revenue is recurring.
Wow.
Over 91% of that revenue is recurring on a contractual basis. And the other 8% is service-related work that comes with those contracts. So realistically, 99% of my revenue is going to keep recurring. I have very, very low attrition. Customers don't quit using us once they start using us. I still have customer number 1, 2, 5, 10. They're still working with us.
Wow.
We have only lost customers due to them going out of business, being acquired by somebody else, or they switch to a partner and change their business a little bit. But we've built partnerships as well. This is another thing I feel like we've done right. And partners are really, really hard. They take a long time to build revenue with a partnership. There's obviously political and challenging things around it too. But our partners generate a good portion of our revenue today, not the majority, but a good portion of our revenue. And by and large, that's 99% profitability to us. And those customers, what that enables us to have in our marketplace is if a customer has a life cycle of technology, say 5 or 7 years, and they decide to switch, they either switch to us directly or they switch to one of my other partners. So I keep them. And that's just been amazing for us to have this really, really stable revenue stream to work with. And if we have a hard year, I mean, look, 2022 was actually a really hard year for us because that was the Ukraine war. That was inflation. That was the stock market going up and down like crazy. And my customers are in financial services. So what did they do? They tightened their purse strings. They stopped all the deals that they were working on with us, and they went silent for a year. So I effectively didn't make any sales in 2022, but I didn't suffer for that. Other than I didn't get the growth I wanted, I didn't suffer for that because we have this really, really stable revenue base.
That's incredible. That's definitely brings stability. I'm curious, how do you deal with the emotional roller coaster that comes with making no sales in a year because you didn't know that 2022 will end and then 2023 will turn around? How do you deal with it as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm going to answer your question a little bit differently. How do you deal with the pressure of money overall? And so here's part of the story. When I started my business, I left a multi-six-figure income to make $12,000 a year for the next 4 years. I didn't know that was exactly what was going to happen, but I cashed out my 401k. I sold the dream car I'd already purchased and cashed that out to get the equity out of it. And I said, we're just going to focus on this business. I have no revenue, no income source. We're going to figure it out. So my wife, who's very risk averse, asked me, how did you sleep at night knowing you couldn't pay your rent? And so here's the truth. The first of the month when I paid my rent, I had no concept of how I would pay my rent on the next first in 30 days. And do you know how much sleep I lost? 0. It never bothered me. Now, I had to figure it out, obviously, but I have this philosophy about life that if you need something, the sky is going to part and show you the way to get there. So if you need the money, it'll be there. Sometimes it was credit cards. Sometimes I remember one month on the 29th of the month, somebody decided to buy our product for 30 users and paid us several $1,000s. And suddenly we had payroll met. So suddenly I had the money to pay my rent. I didn't always know how it was going to happen, but I just trusted that it was always going to happen. So when I have a year where sales are down, I tend to focus, you probably heard this, control the controllables. I tend to focus on what I can actually do. So 2022, as we're going through the year and our pipeline is drying up and people are not responding and we're not making the sales and things are not growing the way we wanted, we started saying, well, what can we do about this? That's the genesis of starting my podcast. It was in August of 22. I'm like, I need to get my name out there. I need to start being vocal. I need to platform so I can be on stage with others somehow. And remember, 2022 is coming out of the pandemic. People are not traveling. There's no conferences to go to. So how do you meet people? The podcast was a brilliant decision because every week I am meeting new people. And it's better than a trade show because I get this quality time with this person and I get to build rapport in a non-threatening way because it's not about buying my software. Many of the people I talk to have no ability to buy my software, so I'm not trying to sell to them. I just get to meet them and network and meet more people that way. So to answer your question, I tend to look at what can I actually do? And if I have a down period, what can I use that time to do instead? If sales aren't working, traveling's not happening, what else can I do with that time?
Brilliant. You know, that's the way I started my podcast as well. It was in 2021. Yeah, it was 2021. It was the pandemic time. And the way that I used to get business is network in person. Mm-hmm. And I go like, okay, what do I do? And just like you figure out like, what is the new networking? How can I meet people? How can I have meaningful conversations? How can I help others? Because it really started also with helping others. I was on somebody's podcast to help them promote what they were doing. It was like, this is really interesting. And that's how I met Jeremy. And I learned more. And I was like, this is the way to network because you get to meet very interesting people. You get to help a lot of people by putting your content out there, because if you put meaningful content, you can do that. And you also get to know people that introduce you to other people or introduce them. And it's a whole way of networking without having to go in person or rely on that in-person connection.
Yeah. May I answer your question in another way?
Of course.
As I don't know if everybody thinks the way I do around this. I don't plan in 3 month, 6 month, or 1 year increments. I plan in 3 to 5 year increments. Mm-hmm. And so I don't look at what I'm doing today as what's going to happen tomorrow. I look at what I do today is going to impact the next 2 years. Part of this is because I just have a long-term view of what I want my company to become, and I don't give up on that long-term goal. But second, I've learned in my industry, look, we are business to business, we are software as a service, we are enterprise sales, which is very, very challenging. But one of the reasons it's challenging is my sales cycle is usually 9 to 12 months. And then my product is priced on how much you consume it. So if you generate 1 form or 1,000 forms or 100,000 forms, the price just varies based on consumption. So if I have a customer take 12 months to make a decision and then 6 months or even 9 months to implement, and then they go live and they're starting at 0 usage, I might wait another 6, 12, 18 months for them to ramp up to total usage. So it might take me 2 to 3 years from the time I meet a customer to see the full value of what that customer brings from a revenue standpoint. And all the while, I have to deliver value to them, which I love. I'm solving problems with them and I'm helping them see how to do more with it. So therefore, I can't have a short-term view of this. I have to look at what I'm doing this year is going to actually have a really big impact on 2026 and 2027, not 2025. And what happens in 2025, that's based on what I did last year. So I have this long-term view, which also kind of stabilizes me. I mean, granted, my stable revenue supports that mindset, but I think I've thought this way from day one, frankly.
Rich, I think it's fantastic. What we are creating right now is basically a system on how not to worry financially, how to have a financial stability, how to have a viewpoint where you do not give in to financial instability. You know, there is different things that we are discussing here. I have to come up with this brilliant name, but what it is really think ahead, think on the future, have hope and have your outlook is on the future, it's much better than to looking at what just happened. What just happened just went away. You always have to have the viewpoint on the future. And I agree with you on that. Look at what you can control. Figure out, like, if things are not going the way you want, what is it that you can control? And also, if I may, and correct me if it's not correct, if it's not right, but what I see is that you have a real purpose for what you do. You believe in what you do, and you have a purpose for what you do that definitely motivates and pushes you forward.
I will validate that, but I'm going to tell you, as an entrepreneur, you wake up in the morning with a brand new business idea because you think, oh, this is going to make me rich. I can make millions of dollars with this product or service. What I've learned is how many people I can help. It's no longer about the dollars. It's about how many times I can help people avoid having to fill out forms and how many different types of problems that we can solve. That's what I live for, Adi. I mean, yes, making money is important. Don't get me wrong.
Well, that's what I mean by purpose. That's your purpose, is to help as many people as you want. And that's what motivates you. So it elevates you above the worries, because so long as you have that viewpoint and that purpose, everything else will follow.
Yes. And I will argue that, again, your first idea is not your best idea. It's the one that gets you motivated. But through that process, that journey of building that product, finding the second product, or finding the pivot to the right audience, whatever it is, that is when you start to understand what your actual purpose is. The other thing I look at from an entrepreneur standpoint, because I've coached a lot of people, I've helped people start businesses, is to understand what you like and what you dislike and how that applies to your business model. And I'll give you a really clear example. My wife is a nurse. She partnered with a doctor to start a weight loss clinic because they piloted it. They had great success with their clients. They enjoyed it. And then she started the business, and it all became about being on the phone with customers. The number one thing she hates in the business world is being on the phone. So after getting to profitability in the first 6 months, we closed the business down. She hated it. And it's just something you have to think about as an entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur. What is it you like and don't like to do? And how are you going to build a business model around that so that you get to do your best work? And fundamentally, this is where I started from. I want to do my best work, which turns out to be solving problems.
Yes. And when you have that and you know that that's what you're going to do and continue doing, that also gives you that security, the financial security you're looking for, because you know that things are going to happen if you continue doing that.
Yes. So I also talk about fulfillment in my life. And I do this actually in my own podcast when I meet with a guest. And that is that we as humans depend on each other. Like, I did not sew my own shirt. I didn't grow my own oranges, right? We all depend on each other to have the life that we want. Therefore, fulfillment is derived from how we serve and help others. And when you start to think about your business that way, and somebody says, hey, what do you do? I like to think they asked me, how do you help people? Because that is really the purpose. And that's where you find your purpose in building your business. You might be excited about this new AI technology and what it could do, but get more excited about how it's going to help others. And you will find fulfillment and therefore purpose in what you're doing.
That is correct. It's not about the features, it's about the results and what you're actually going to get them at the end. Because how you do it, it doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, if you do it, it matters to you as a business owner for sure. It matters also on the customer experience overall, because it makes it faster, easier, better. But it's a getting to the results every single time. That's really what matters.
Adi, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. And this is your podcast, but I want to ask you, why do you love documentation and process, mapping as much as you do?
Because I bring order into companies, and that is my passion, is to bring order into things. I like taking chaotic, complex systems and make it simple, make it orderly. And I'll tell you a story. And thank you for asking me that. I feel like I'm being interviewed, which is fantastic. I'll tell you a story why I like doing what I'm doing. We were documenting the processes and procedures for a real estate company. And we were rolling it out, because we always do. It's not just the documentation, it's actually the implementation and the using it. We roll it out to the team. And after that, a young guy came to me that just got hired. And he said that was the fact that that company now has predictable systems, that he can understand specifically what he does, that it takes the ambiguity, the lack of knowledge, knowing what will happen, it gives him certainty. He knows that now he has job security because he can do what he needs to be doing, not because the job security is because it's a strong company or not or whatnot, but he knows that he has that power right now of producing what he needs to be producing. So if he does that, we talked about the controllable, right? Mm-hmm. Now he's in control. He's not in control how the company portfolio is doing and whether they're going to be successful or not. There's going to be layoffs. There's going to be inflation. There's going to, the house market is going to crash. Who knows? But the controllable, what he can control, he feels now that he can. And that is, in a nutshell, why I do what I do. The business owner that tells me that finally he was able to go to a basketball or a baseball game for his daughter, that he wasn't able to do before. How many baseball games is he going to be able to go? I mean, she's 12. I mean, how many more are going to be? But now he can, because he can, in turn, help his own clients. He has the stability and the knowledge and the control that he can do it. So then he could then also help on other areas of life. So that is why, just similar to you, it's how many people we can help. When you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, that's a great one. How many people can you help? And what do you help with? And we all help with our own unique superpowers or whatever we decide that in that area we can help.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to relate to your story and tell you another story.
Tell me.
I have a system that needs to be running 24/7, high availability, high uptime. My customers depend on our forms being available. Imagine being a financial advisor, sitting with your client at your desk. They've come to your office. They're ready to do a transaction and the forms don't generate. They don't work. Now you can't do your business. Now you've got an upset client. Now what do you do to follow up and earn that business, right? So we take that really, really seriously. Now, I'm CEO. I've been chief technology officer. I've run all our systems. I've designed a lot of things. Our systems have gone down in the past. I would sit there and firefight. I'm trying to talk to customers and look at servers and find somebody else on my team and figure out the problem and solve the problem. And I'm getting emails and I'm getting the CIO of AIG, one of the largest companies, calling me upset. How do I do all this? My VP of customer success stepped in one day and said, why have we not documented a process for how to handle these emergencies, which we call 911s? And why don't we delegate somebody to talk to customers, somebody to update the status page, somebody to look at the server, somebody to look at the database, right? And so she helped coordinate all this, and it's really well documented now. And you want to know the outcome, Adi? I have not personally participated in a 911 for the past at least year, if not 2 years. My team is so brilliant at handling it. And we're proactive with customers now. And we are transparent about what's going on so they can make decisions with facts. And we don't wait for them to call us. We tell them, hey, this is going on, be aware of it. We gave them better tools for that. We resolve things faster as a result. And every time something happens, we find ways to make it sure it doesn't happen ever again. So that further eliminates the need for this type of situation. So I want to 100% say having a good documented process that your team understands what to do and when to do it, 100% frees you up. I mean, the fact that I have not had to be on a 911, there have been times I'm at Costco in the middle of the day because I got to go do something and my phone blows up and I see it's happening. I don't worry about it. My team takes care of it.
Incredible. Incredible. What a great story. Rich, tell us about your books.
So I have published 2 books. It's been quite some time since I published them. The first one I wrote in 2007 and published in 2011. I'm sure people can relate. Publishing a book is scary. You're vulnerable. Like, what are people going to think? So it took me 4 years to get to a point where I could say I could publish this book. The first one is called It's My Life. I Can Change If I Want to. And it is a 4-step methodology for how to create change in your life. I grew up in a very challenged environment. My father was into drugs and alcohol. My parents divorced when I was 4. We moved every year of my life. Adi, I've turned 50 this year. I've moved 33 times in my life. So I've gone through incredible types of change. And I learned around age 12 how to change myself for the better because I saw patterns in people and I saw behaviors I didn't like in myself and in others. And I said, how can I become a better person? And I developed this 4-step methodology for how to change my behaviors and my beliefs. And so I wrote the book to help others do that very thing. I like to think of this book as kind of a primer, a precursor to any other self-improvement coaching course, book you're going to read, anything like that. Because the problem I have with a lot of the books out there is you'll read them for 3 or 6 weeks. It takes a while to get through them. And what do they tell you? Oh, this is why it happens. Here's who it impacts. Here's how it would be better. Do they ever tell you the actual steps? Like, this is what you do? So my book does. These are the 4 steps that you always apply. My second book is another one of my passions, which is, it's called It's My Life, I Can Have the Job I Want. And that book is catered to helping people get the job they deserve and they'll thrive in. Now, I got to tell you, that book went out of print and I didn't renew it because part of it came out of date. I wrote it in 2012 and some of that data is just not as relevant anymore. I didn't want to do the research to refresh it. So I decided to give it away for free as an ebook. And in September of 24, I figured out I could turn it into a chat GPT module for free. So there is a free AI job search coach out there in ChatGPT store that you can go find. It will read your resume for you and critique it and give you feedback. It'll do mock interviews with you. But the most important thing it can do is it can help you figure out your ideal company culture through an interview process that I uniquely developed. And through that process, it can help you identify what kind of company or even what company would be your best work environment so you naturally thrive and love what you do. And I'll tell you this first success story. I had a friend beta test it. He was actually at this point of like, I can't get the job I want. I'll just go work in a grocery store. Within a week of using this AI tool, he landed his ideal job. I was stunned. I mean, literally a week, he had his job.
Wow. Wow. Rich, that's just a testimonial of how much you help people and you live to help, which is an incredible story. So I definitely encourage our listeners to get the first book and go check the AI tool for the second one. And if they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Rich Walker. I think my title is actually Quik Form CEO, and that's Quik, no letter C, Quik Form CEO on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to connect with me. If you want to send me an email, it's rwalker@quikforms.com. My rule on LinkedIn is if you do want to connect with me, send me a personal note. Say why. Don't just add connection. I don't just accept all the random people. I really want to connect with you. Let's have a meeting. Let's figure out how I might help. Let's network together, whatever it is.
Perfect. Rich, this has been a very, very dynamic, intriguing, interesting interview. And I really thank you for all the contributions and all the knowledge and the outlook that you have on life, which I truly believe that others should learn from and adopt because it will just make life better. So thank you for that. Well,
thank you, Adi. And I want to tell your audience, Adi is working hard to have a really great podcast to help others. And the way that her podcast can get out there is because you go like it, subscribe to it, and share it with others when you see it. So go take a moment and do that just simple click of liking her podcast and sharing it with somebody else so that she can help the world do better with their documentation and processes.
Thanks, Rich. And thank you again for being a guest.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.